Feminism is basically just the belief that women are human too, and they deserve to be treated as humans. We are fighting Muslims who are reinforcing oppressive beliefs about women. And then we are fighting radical feminists, mainstream feminists, who don't even believe that Muslim women know what they want for themselves. It's not a cult of what the men want. It's what does God want.
Yes. Tune in to hear Muslim women talking back like never before. This is the HSM TribeCast. Hi guys, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the High Street Muslimah TribeCast, the podcast for Muslim women by Muslim women. My name is Khadija. Today's episode is bold. It's interesting, slightly controversial for some, and I have an amazing guest with me to have this conversation today. She's a lawyer, a writer, media mogul in the making. Meet Wardah, founding editor of the Muslim Women Times, a platform that centers diverse perspectives about Muslim women. Kind of like this one. Hello, Wardah. How are you? Wa alaikum assalam. It's good to have you here today. Glad you could make up the time to have the conversation. So we usually start with like some icebreakers to get us a bit comfortable and in the mood. So tell us 2 truths and 1 lie about Wardah.
I'm a mom. I love socializing a lot. And I don't like to be rushed.
I know you're a mom. Probably you like socializing a lot. That's the lie. I got that right. But okay, so we're having a really interesting topic today. It's about women, and the power of choice, feminism. Is there such thing as feminism in Islam? Things like that. And I think a really good place to just start and like level up is, do you think men and women are equal?
In Islam, yeah.
Generally, yeah. And then yes, from Islam, from the Islamic perspective.
The Islamic perspective, it's there in the Quran, Surah Al-Hujurat, where Allah said He created all of us, male, female, from a man and a woman, and then He made us into tribes and races so that we would know one another. And Allah mentioned that the most honorable of us, the most superior one, is the one who is mindful of Him.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no basis for superiority except through piety, except on the basis of piety. Superiority only comes on the basis of who is most mindful of Allah. We are equal in the sight of Allah. And the only one who is more honorable in the sight of Allah is the one who has the most taqwa, the most pious person. And so on the basis of that, one can conclude that we're all humans and we are all on the basis of that equality, we are equal in terms of substantive value.
Yeah.
In terms of possessing the same level of dignity and being able to be treated equally as human beings.
Yeah. That last point that you made is very important, being able to be treated equally, because there's usually the argument between, equality and equity. Is it a matter of semantics, really? Because I think it's that, yes, we're equal, as you said before, Allah, in our worship, right? Definitely, we're not biologically equal.
We are equal in our humanity, not just in our worship.
Yeah, exactly.
Spiritually equal,
Mm-hmm.
and on the basis of our humanity, we are equal.
Yeah.
But we are different also.
Yes.
Physiologically, we are different. Our biology is different. And on that basis, we have different rules to perform in terms of on the basis of our biological differences.
Mm.
Women, for example, we have a biological system that allows us to be able to have children and go through the process of increasing humanity, and that is a big role on its own. It's something that men cannot do.
But so would you say for you, that's what feminism.
Yeah, because we have to factor in these differences. The role of bringing humans into the world is not. I can actually say that's like the major difference between the male biology and the female biology. And it's a very daunting role. It's one that requires care and a lot of, you know, care actually. And so if Allah says these women are responsible for not I don't want to use the word responsible because I don't want to make it look like it's compulsory to have kids. But if Allah says on the basis of their biology, they are going to be having kids anyway, you should, your own role as a man, while these women are there, having kids, raising kids, you should support them. You should protect them. You should be responsible for their well-being. It doesn't make them superior to women. It just means we have different roles to play
That complement each other.
and complement each other.
Yeah. So why do you think then that term feminism, why does it get so much hate, or why does it get so much flack? Like, I think the moment you say, oh, so that person is a feminist, like there's just an impression that people already have, and it's like, yeah, like why?
Different factors. Fear of change, for example. There is an already existing order, a very hierarchical social order where men are on top, women are beneath, and that is what the world is used to. That is what men are used to. That is what society is used to. And then we have these women coming out to say, no, it shouldn't be this way. We should be treated equally. We should be afforded equal opportunities to resources and to we should be treated as human. Feminism is basically just the belief that women are human too and they deserve to be treated as humans. There's this ignorance of thinking feminism is about stripping men of their masculinity.
Whereas the focus is really on just
It's just
women and getting
like
more
treat
yeah.
women as human beings.
Yeah.
Treat them, afford them. Until very recently, women couldn't even have, they couldn't open their own bank accounts. Women couldn't, they were not given the same opportunities to go to school, to get jobs. Women couldn't vote. Women couldn't own properties in their own name. Women couldn't even inherit from their fathers and from their husband. And so these are things that feminism brought into place for women. It's just basically saying women should be given a choice to live their lives to their highest potential, or to the potential, to the level that actually makes them satisfied or makes them happy. Give them choices. Give them choices. Women have dreams. Women have aspirations. Don't just limit these dreams and aspirations to a particular role that you're supposed to play in society.
Yeah.
Let them have the choice. Let them get to choose what they want to do with their lives.
Choice. That's yeah, I think that at the end of it, that's what it boils down to. The power to just choose whatever it is. And it's funny that we had this, the first thing, what you said on the last point around one of the reasons why people feel threatened by that word is because we're used to a certain order, which favors men. But you find that a lot of times there are actually women themselves who are staunch, what do you call them, opposers of feminism. And it makes you wonder, like, okay, what's really going on here? And then when you factor in the general conversation about women supporting women, etc., like, why do you also find that it's not just men? In fact, you have men that are quite happy,
when I was talking about it, I didn't mention men. I mentioned society.
Society. Oh, okay.
And it's an already established order that we are used to. This is what the moment you have a girl child, you start prepping her for marriage. You start prepping her for child bearing, she doesn't think she has a choice in what she gets to do with her life. And You cannot expect girls who have been prepped for this kind of life, and maybe along the line they felt, okay, this is what our life is about. And then they see other women suddenly saying, no, we're not going to do this. Of course, they feel threatened.
Yeah.
And
Almost resentment too.
yeah,
I think.
also also fear of change and also fear of inadequacy. Why do they get to do this when all our lives we've been told that this is what our lives are about? Why do these other women get to do this? There are some women that benefit from male superiority, from male privilege. There are some women that secure certain positions just by putting other women in check.
Well,
Yeah.
the gatekeepers.
Yeah, the gatekeepers. So if you are able to put other women in check, your position is secure. You need an example of what I'm talking about.
Let's use women leaders, for instance, in political parties.
Yeah, exactly.
Or during campaigns.
Political parties. You know, when a field is dominated by men and then we have just a handful of women in that field, in order to be able to maintain your position in that field, you may have to do the bidding of the men. You may have to succumb to not disagreeing with popular culture.
Yeah.
Or otherwise you stand the risk of being thrown out.
Yeah, because I mean, within that example, for instance, they're the ones who are taking care of the welfare, as they call it, welfare empowerment programs. Because if you can do the bare minimum, like to get people, then you're not talking about the real questions and the real issues. Yes, I get it from that standpoint. Something else that you mentioned in terms of earlier on, it's in the early days, women couldn't, run their own businesses. They couldn't vote. They couldn't. But
they
the thing
didn't
is,
even have a choice of who to marry.
exactly. Well, I keep coming back to faith because obviously that's like a key theme for our conversation. And it's like all those years ago, like these rights were already guaranteed
in Islam.
Yes, for women. Like you could inherit down to the quota of what that inheritance was. You could say no, right, to a marriage proposal and things like that. But contrast that to today and the mainstream media narrative of what Muslim women are about. Like, according to them, we're oppressed. We need saving, and that's not discountenancing the fact that there are serious issues in other parts of the world where you have Muslim women and lessened liberties and what we have here. But the mainstream narrative that you find pushed more often than not is that we're almost at a, like, if women generally agitating, under like feminist ideologies and co, are in a bad position, then we are far worse off.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, what do you think? Why do you think that narrative persists? And because I think it's just like almost being blackmailed, for lack of a better word, to conform to what mainstream feminism says. I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
Okay, first of all, I wouldn't entirely blame mainstream feminism for that. I will blame Muslims. Because, Muslim women wouldn't even be talking about feminism right now if
Like somebody is watching this right now and being like,
we
oh
wouldn't
my
be
God.
talking about feminism right now if we had just, stuck to the reforms that the Prophet brought, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the 14th century. No, in the 7th century, sorry. The reforms he brought at that time were really groundbreaking for that time. In a time where, we're burying girl children. Girl child meant absolutely nothing. People wept when they had female children. They weren't even considered humans. And then he brought this idea, let me call it an idea, that no, these women are your partners in faith and in humanity, and they deserve equal treatment as you. and they deserve financial rights, and they get to choose how they want to live, and they get to, they deserve social, cultural, social economic, social political rights. We had women holding positions, speaking up about issues during the time of the prophet, going to him about concerns, about certain concerns that were eating them up at the time. We have verses in the Quran responding to women's concerns.
Yeah.
Exactly, directly. And then we are now in the 21st century where we're experiencing a regression.
It's supposedly modern times.
Yeah. Where we're experiencing a backward, there's a lot of, I don't even know where to start, but it's really deep. It's really, really deep, because for every fatwa making women, portraying women to be inferior,
Yeah.
there are different things to back it up. There's always one thing or the other to back it up. And so I wouldn't say it's entirely the fault of mainstream feminists when they say, oh, Muslim women are so oppressed and we need to save them. It's getting to a point where we need to tell mainstream feminists to leave Muslim women alone.
Yeah, like, let them talk for themselves. Don't take away their voices.
Speaking over us, speaking about us, speaking for us, as if we don't have our own voices, as if we cannot even contextualize women's rights. We can't even get to define what rights are for ourselves. There was a conversation on Twitter about choice feminism. I think someone tweeted about, I think she asked a question along the lines of, can I be a feminist and also choose to be a stay-at-home wife? And then a few people said, yes, why not? Feminism is about choice. So yes, as long as you are happy and it's a conscious choice that you are making,
not being forced by anyone,
and you are not being conditioned to make that choice, and it's also a choice that is not detrimental to your well-being as a woman, then fine, why not? But then we had radical feminists come out to say, no, feminism is not about choice, and you don't get to be a stay-at-home wife and be a feminist at the same time. And it had me thinking, you are fighting one form of oppression that takes choices away from women, and then you are replacing it with another form of oppression,
essentially
taking choices away from women and imposing your script on them, imposing your own ideals on them, your own ideology on them. That's actually betraying what feminism is about.
Yeah.
Mainstream feminism already excludes Muslim women because they think that feminism is not enough.
Do they even believe? And that's bringing me to where I'm going. Like, do they even believe, first of all, that there's any such feminism actually going on?
If you are wearing the hijab, for example, they don't take you serious.
Yeah, because it's already like, well, according to them, you're probably doing something like
oppression.
Yeah.
Why do you
Symbol.
have this
Symbol.
clothing
Yeah.
thrust upon you as a woman? It's definitely not your choice. You have been forced to make this choice, and we need to save you from it. And this is why I think if they were genuine, if it wasn't about forcing their own ideas on other women from cultures different from theirs,
Yeah.
they would listen to these women. They are not from the same culture. They don't practice the same faith. They don't have the same reality.
Yeah.
They don't even live in the same location, in the same geographical location. So why don't you listen to them, ask them what they want, and allow them to, just allow women from other cultures to define what equality means to them, what freedom or liberation means to them. Why do you have to impose your own ideas on them?
Yeah. And so I think one thing that I also struggle with when you were just talking about, we cannot shy away from the fact that there really are Muslim women in parts of the world that are oppressed. Yeah.
that are forced. So it's like, think about the Taliban in Afghanistan banning girls' education, women's education, and even Boko Haram here, right? And was it not in Iran, the ban on raising voices? So there are things that, and you actively have, but what I like is that you actively have women who are in those contexts, speaking about what it means for them. But you also, again, as you know, have mainstream media and mainstream feminism. Yeah, like, are we ready for that conversation as Muslims? And are we like,
two demons?
yes, two battles.
Fighting two demons. We are fighting Muslims.
Yeah.
Who are reinforcing oppressive beliefs about women. And then we are fighting radical feminists, mainstream feminists, who don't even believe that Muslim women know what they want for themselves. So, for example, Islam itself, I was going to emphasize, is a choice. Islam is not something you force on people. And just like feminism is a choice, Islam is a choice. If someone says they are Muslim, they don't automatically subject themselves to the control of other Muslims. It's a journey. It's a personal journey. We are a community nonetheless, but it's also a personal journey.
Yeah.
You don't get to define people's pace, people's journey for them.
Because it's all different, isn't it?
If a woman has chosen to be Muslim, you don't get to force the hijab on her, for example.
Yeah, and
There is no
between you and your Lord, yes, your Lord has told you you should use it, but ultimately,
that is between you and
Exactly.
Allah. You don't get to be arrested or punished or, forced to wear it when you are not there yet. When it's not, you're not doing it because, I'm doing this because my Lord has asked me to do it. Now I'm doing it because I've been forced to do it, not because Allah has asked you to do it.
Yeah.
And so
There's no
happens in
punishment
Quran-
for it, is it?
No.
Allah himself does
No.
not prescribe a punishment.
Even when we look at the context, the historical context behind the hijab, we see that it's actually not even something that should be forced on women. It was something that was it was ordained for women, for the benefits of women.
Yeah.
If you choose not to do it, you lose out on the benefits. So if we are condemning, for example, the hijab ban in France, we as Muslims should also be condemning what is happening in Iran and Afghanistan.
It's not only when it's external, because the oppression sometimes is also from
We
within.
have a lot of Muslims, for example, that don't pray. We've not seen anyone arrest them for not praying. We have a lot of Muslims out there doing despicable things that are even harmful to the community. So why is there a hyperfixation on the hijab, both from the Muslim side and from the feminist side? So as a Muslim woman in hijab, we are constantly caught between two opposing sides. The Muslim side, the traditional Muslim side, and then the mainstream feminist side. And then we have the traditional Muslim side who thinks that because you are Muslim and you are visibly Muslim, they have the right to tell you what to do. That you are like the communal property of the Muslims. And they get to dictate to you what to do. And they get to police you. They get to tell you this is how you should speak, and this is how you should talk, and this is
holding
how not to
their
talk.
own standards.
Like it's like this. They have this very cookie cutter definition of what a Muslim woman should be, especially a visibly Muslim.
Yeah, and we're also different.
And oppressive,
Yes.
on one side. And then on the other side, we have the mainstream feminist side who think because you have a head covering, you don't get to have a voice, you are oppressed, and they should be the ones speaking for you. And their definition of liberation is to first of all rid you of this clothing that you are putting on.
Symbol of oppression.
This symbol of oppression, yeah.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
very challenging, extremely challenging.
Yeah. And I picked on something that you said around one of the people you're fighting is traditional Muslim. Because tradition holds such a space, right, culturally with us. If we go back to Islam and when, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam started propagating it at the time, he never completely, he never came to erode the culture of the people. Yes, it still stood, but there were basic fundamentals that came as part of Islam. I find that a lot of times some of the traditionalists that you're fighting are men, but also society, which again is largely dictated on the male perspective. So I was talking about this with someone the other day, and I think it's a good point to bring into this conversation. So when we, come back to the basics, do you think that Islam is patriarchal?
No.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you in trouble.
No.
Just ask.
Islam is not patriarchal. I don't think that Islam is patriarchal. We have a model. Society has its own model.
Yeah.
Most Muslims have a model that I think is wrong. The model that Islam has is a triangular model. God at the top,
Okay.
man and woman at the bottom of the triangle. That's the model, the Tawhidic model. We all worship Allah. We are all accounted. It's not a cult of male worship. It's
No.
not a cult of what the men want. It's what does God want.
Yes.
But the model that society has is a straight line model. God at the top, the man at the middle of the line, and then the women at the bottom.
Are you sure that we're actually even after men? Are you sure there are no things in between?
Well, so it's the model illustrates a system where for the Muslim woman, she has to please the man to please Allah. And that is not the model. The model is triangular. You both have to please Allah and you both have to please each other.
Yes.
That is the model.
Yeah, because with the triangle, it all feeds into each other.
Because we found a way to fabricate a lot of things to make this straight line model the one that is actually Islamic when it is not. For example, you hear things like the Jannah of the wife lies at the feet of the husband.
I've never heard that before.
Oh,
I thought it was the other way around, the Jannah of the child lies at the feet of the mother.
Yeah, but they peddle that a lot.
Interesting.
They peddle that a lot. As a Muslim wife, for example, I'm talking within the context of a marriage, not even the broader community context. You have a right to speak up when your spouse is doing something that is wrong. You have a spouse. You have a right to say, I don't agree with you on this. I don't think this is how it should be done. I don't think this will please Allah.
Yeah.
It's not a master-servant relationship or a superior-inferior relationship where you just, you don't have to.
Well done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think this is just the right time to bring in, because a lot of people will bring the verse, Surah Nisa, the verse on Qawwam, the Qawwam verse, Arijal Qawwamun ala Nisa. The men are the
Protectors of the women.
maintenance of the women. And it also goes down to what I said about difference in biology.
Yeah.
You cannot expect a woman who is on her own vulnerable by virtue of her physical weakness, and who is also in charge of bringing in vulnerable members of society to protect herself or to provide for herself during that period. So the position of Qawwam is that of responsibility. It's not that of superiority or privilege, as men like to assert it. They like to say, oh, Allah has made us qawwam, so we are superior to you, and you obey and you take orders from us and all of that. No, that verse, there's a lot of misinterpretation out there that other scholars have tried to correct. For example, in that verse, Allah made mention of the word qanitat when he was describing which women are the qanitat. And then you see that a lot of interpretations out there say qanitat means women who are obedient to their husbands. Meanwhile, qanitat only means women who are obedient to God, devoted to God. Women who are devout, pious.
Yeah.
And so they will tell you that in the context of that verse, because Allah has mentioned men as qawwam, qanitat makes women obedient to the husband in that context, which is false, because all obedience is to Allah. So what I was just trying to point at is that in Islam we have a tawhidic system, a system where everyone is accountable to God and we are all equal before Allah, and we will all account to Him independently of one another. And so it's not a system where we have to do the bidding of the men to please Allah.
Because nobody will ask you about that at the end of the day. It's going to be, what did you do to please your Lord? Is it a function of education? Because if you take your knowledge about Islam from what the men around you tell you, then ultimately that's all you know. Whereas we should individually seek education and more knowledge about our faith. So do you think that this thing of not knowing the true situation of things or misunderstanding it, or the ability for a lot of people to perpetuate that, misrepresentation over generations, is it a function of education and the fact that not a lot of Muslim women are actually aspiring to that?
Education, lack of education on one hand, and then we have social condition on the other hand. We have a situation where people are told, you cannot learn this religion for yourself. You have to get someone who will instruct you on your religion. And that is widespread. So we have a situation where you ask the average Muslim something about their religion, and they're telling you, I don't know, I'm going to call my imam to tell me what it is. And that is not from Islam, because the first word that was revealed to the Prophet in the Quran was to read. And Allah revealed this book to us to read. How many Muslims actually read the Quran? How many Muslims take their time to understand what Allah has revealed to them? How many Muslims do not just parrot what they hear people say about what Allah has revealed?
Yeah.
But it's not entirely their fault. It's partially their fault, because they have actually not, sat down to think independently. For example, before the Prophet ﷺ was called into prophethood, he used to meditate a lot and he used to reflect a lot in a private place, long before he was even called to prophethood. How many Muslims do that? They will tell you, if you don't quote someone, then whatever you are saying is rubbish. And this kind of
When you
error,
have a source for any clear position
to
you take.
have a source from the Quran,
Yeah.
or from the Sunnah. But where you, for example, you have Muslims coming out to say outrageous claims, things that are very unfounded in the Quran and the Sunnah. And then you ask them, where did you get this from? They tell you, I got it from this particular sheikh or a particular scholar said it. And the moment you ask them, okay, so what was the source of this scholar? They tell you, how
It
dare
ends
you
there.
challenge the scholar? Where are you?
It ends
Challenge
there.
the scholar.
Yeah. Because
Because this scholar has said it,
it's law.
it is law.
Yeah. But the truth is, so the ulama, the scholars actually do have a a revered place in Islam. But ultimately, there has to be a chain. Is that thing that you said about if a scholar is saying something, what is the source? Ultimately, is it from the Islamic jurisprudence?
Yeah.
And then does that go back to hadith? And then is that naturally hadith and Quran are together. Exactly. But there needs to be an infallible chain.
Because even if you are quoting a hadith, it has to be a hadith that is consistent with the Quran.
Yeah.
And also consistent with the Quran.
Yeah.
But it's not the fault of the scholars, because a lot of scholars out there, scholars of the past that I've read, always issue a disclaimer that they are not always right, and that we should question them, and that we should challenge them. But because of our nature as human beings, we tend to worship them instead of seeing them as the humans that they are. The same thing that humans have done to prophets. Alayhi salam.
Because they're not God, are they?
They are not God.
Yeah.
Look at Prophet Isa, for example, who only came to be a messenger, and then he was elevated to a higher position, to a deity. So that is what Muslims are doing. That is my observation of what is going on in the Muslim world right now. So yes, there's lack of education. There's Muslim women out there, you hear them quote certain things, say certain outrageously embarrassing things, and then they quote a scholar. And then you can't even question the scholar, because who are you to question?
And on that topic of scholars, is it also a thing again about the dearth of female scholarship in Islam? Because before I will find, preparing for the episodes, or even generally just my own private research, before you find female opinions on topics, including topics that solely have to do with women, before you find it, you've seen like 100 or more, in terms of the ratio of men and their speaking on their behalf. Yeah, so what is it like? And correct me if that's an assumption, but where are the female scholars? Where is the female scholarship in this?
In the past, we did not have a dearth of no scholars. We had them in abundance, but then we had them at a time where culturally they were not documented, because there were cultural beliefs around women's presence in society being fitna, which of course again is not from Islam. Because the main purpose of the hijab, for example, I'm going back to that, is to encourage women, or to make women participate publicly in society with the power of their bodies switched off. So you saying a woman's presence in society is fitna?
Well, if she was observing a hijab and you as a man was also observing your hijab,
yeah, exactly. So because of that, because there's this narrative out there, women have fitna, they are temptation for the men, their voices shouldn't be heard. Of course, their voices.
And Iran has just said that.
Women's voices, well, the voice of a woman is aura, which is not true. So, yeah.
I mean, it does tell us to lower our voices. If am I recalling that verse well in is it Al-Azab? So about telling the Muslim, yes, rather. So don't change your,
not to make your voice attractive.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't say to lower.
To lower your voice.
There's soft in speech. So there's this cultural thing. There was this cultural thing, and it still is at the moment, where the overwhelming number of female scholars we had in the past were not documented, because of the view that women's voices shouldn't be heard, and women themselves should not be documented. So, for example, in modern times, you have women insisting that you have to call me by my name. This is my name. I am not the daughter of so, or the wife of so, or the mother of so. I am a person
by myself.
By my own self. So just treat me as the person that I am without I'm not just an appendage to someone else. Sheikh Muhammad Akram Nadwi released published volumes of books documenting the works of female scholars, thousands
throughout the year.
and then we have it available right now in our own modern times. But here, in our present, in the 21st century, do we have a dearth of female scholars? Yes, I think we do. And I think it all boils down to conditioning, like I said. Women being conditioned to believe that they cannot learn this deen for themselves without going through a man.
That's a really, really interesting food for thoughts because, as we said, throughout history, there have been women in every sphere of life, from the Aisha radiallahu anha, who's memorized the Quran and taught it to people.
Who was a scholar?
Exactly, in her own rights. And women who fought in battles alongside the Prophet and his men, to, women who were able to, when they were freed as slaves, reject marriages that they were forced into.
Political positions
Of her, my own namesake, who was a businesswoman par excellence of her time, and the first woman to accept Islam, by the way. So we've had all of those examples throughout the years, but if you could boil it down to like one simple sentence, what would you say needs to change for us to go back to really actualizing the real like power of female choice, especially, within Islam?
Two things actually: education and taqwa. People need to know, and then people need to be mindful of Allah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Wardah. This has been an amazing, I don't know about you, but like, I enjoyed myself and it was a really enlightening conversation. I hope that it was useful as well for everyone watching. Until the next time, please like, share, subscribe. If you enjoyed or learned one or two things, please pass it on and don't be gatekeepers like we already discussed. Till next time, continue to enjoy yourself, life, love, and faith on your terms. Bye.